Hey, this is Scarf RV Banzai. I'm going to try out this 24mm f2.8 EF-S lens on the 30D today, see how it works out. I picked this lens up used locally for a nice deal, so that was good, and make some videos about it. Of course, I have the 22mm f2 for the EFM system, but this should be interesting as well. With the 30D, you can see that it is pretty compact on this camera, but when you add an adapter to EFM, it's definitely a lot larger than the 22 on the EFM stuff. So I'm gonna take some photos today, see how it turns out. This lens appears to focus pretty close, which is nice. About that distance for the focus. With an STM lens like this, I'm surprised that they do work nicely with these older Canon cameras. EF is an interesting mount because they added a lot of technology to it right from the get-go when it was introduced. Even these super new or newer lenses just really seems to work pretty decently well. Focus doesn't go back in when you turn the camera off, so if you leave it out like that, it's going to stay out. So you just have to remember to focus further away so it goes back into the lens. I'm using the M50 today for video. I'm using fully automatic with negative 1/3 exposure compensation, and just let it go, see what happens. Crop factor seems to confuse some people. It's pretty simple. Just think of it as a full frame camera with the image in editing software. You go in there, you crop it to 1.6x, so you remove that amount of the photo, you'll get the look of this camera with the specific lens. Of course, this is an APS-C lens, so it's designed to not fill an entire full frame, but it's still a whatever 24mm f2.8 lens. If it were full frame, it could do that look. Going back to focus and recompose with the center point is kind of frustrating, but nice sometimes, because I know it'll be off most likely, but still it's relatively easy to do. You can change the focus points on here, but you don't have a huge range of areas that you can select. It's actually not too bad. Like I said in the previous video, I've got a little bit of muscle memory for this camera now. A little slower than some of the newer solutions like the touch screens up to your eye, where you can change it. Of course, this camera does have a joystick. You have to press this button and then use a joystick, or press the button and use this top one to cycle through those different points in the viewfinder. I've been using ISO 400 the entire time and didn't notice. Let's fix that real quick. I'm gonna leave it on 200 for a while, see how that does. When I'm doing manual focus with this camera, there is a meter in the viewfinder. You can see that in the center you've got a generally decent exposure, maybe based on what it decides, and I just adjust the settings to get around the middle. But the thing is, with these cameras, you won't know exactly the SLR type cameras. It's probably a good idea to look at your photos after you take them to make sure they're okay. You can see the histogram in the LCD screen, or any of the other features that the camera might have to check exposure. So right now I'm doing 1/200th of a second, f3.5, just to see what the smaller apertures might look like. When I want to take a photo of the whole area, sometimes I adjust where I'm focusing. I'll take multiple photos, so I'll take one on the ground, I'll focus into the trees or just the back area of the path. That way I get some variety, and sometimes one's really interesting compared to another one that doesn't work out. Depends on the situation, the scene, but I tend to try to take multiples of different looks, so maybe I'll find one that I really like, and if I didn't do that, I might have missed out. In this case, I'm doing the focus and recompose, so I'll pick my point and then adjust the camera. So if I want to have the focus on the ground towards me, then it just is better to shift it in that situation. I will say, as I've said in previous videos with the 30D, it is a pleasant camera to use for the most part. Just a DSLR, sometimes they are really nice compared to the mirrorless. They have their own feature set, their own way of being used. And of course I've used the DSLRs for a long time, since the Pentax 2005 or so. It's just generally pleasant to switch things up occasionally. But I do really like the mirrorless cameras, and they are my preference because I do a lot of video. And in the photo situations, the M50, the M5 work well to simply get a quicker, easier photo out of it. In the case of the 30D and older cameras like this, you don't have any live view, so you don't get the added benefit of the newer DSLRs to compose your shot with the screen at all. But it's a very simplistic experience in some ways, because you'll have to use that viewfinder or just spray and pray. So sometimes I will just take a photo without looking through the viewfinder. Sometimes it does work. One thing you want to be careful of with DSLRs, looking through the viewfinder and using the sun at all in your photos, you have to be extremely careful. It's probably better just to get the general composition, what you think it is, take a photo, don't look through the viewfinder. The paths are very tight today, which of course it is the summer, so not unexpected. Actually, probably the last time I was here was in the winter, I'm not sure. I keep hitting this on-off switch. For on, there's two modes. One lets you use this back dial, which I use. The other one doesn't, and it keeps switching to the one that doesn't do it. With this camera and the way that it focuses, the limitations of what I can focus on without having to adjust the camera, with the way it doesn't have live view, I do think that with mirrorless cameras, especially the newer ones, that you can select a focal point on nearly the entire frame. It's just so much better for creativity of where you want to focus, how you want to compose the image. So in that respect, I feel there is some definite limitation to a camera like this. I mean, the point of this video actually was to talk about the 24mm, but it's working just fine. I don't feel like it's too slow or anything. It just seems to be pretty nice. And it's, at least on this camera, it's nice and compact. I think I might get some gaff tape and tape that on-off switch, cover it, so that when I'm using it, I'll put the tape on there and it won't hit. It could be this strap that when I'm using it to the side instead of just on the neck, it actually is more comfortable to do it like this, where it comes off the side. But I'm thinking that it's rubbing. Yep. I should also mention with the M50, I'm using the optical and digital standard stabilization throughout the video to see how it works out. These cameras, the one benefit I guess is that there's less menu options to deal with, which is a positive in some ways. This lens is wide enough that if you want to get a top down, you'll definitely have to adjust your feet a little bit. These mosquitoes are even attacking my camera. They must sense the heat on it or something. One thing you need to keep in mind with the M50 and the digital stabilization, or even the optical, is when you're using a tripod and you're doing video stuff, you want to give the camera a few seconds to stabilize and stop messing around with the image before you do something that you want to actually record. I think we're gonna move to a different area. I'm gonna walk over to the lake. That was a really nice photo opportunity. Usually the butterflies are very skittish, very scared of letting me get close to them, but that one didn't seem to have a problem. So one thing you can do sometimes is just use the viewfinder to frame your shot without really having the intent to take the photo immediately. So if you're trying to think of a good composition, sometimes you'll see it in the viewfinder rather than seeing it with your eyes straight up. I do have to say, with the M50, letting it do its thing with automatic video is very pleasant. It's less hassle, so if it looks decent, I think I might use that more often. The 30D definitely struggles on some focus situations, like this right here. It is very small, even if you get close, and it does struggle on that. Now, I don't think it's the lens, it's just mostly the camera. One thing I just remembered about SLR stuff is that you get dust and stuff in the viewfinder. You have to clean that out. It's a big hassle. So with mirrorless, you're not going to have it in the viewfinder probably, unless it gets in there and then you're totally in hot water. But that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it on the 24mm f2.8 with the 30D. I will take this lens out with the other cameras, probably do a comparison eventually with the 22mm f2 and this lens on maybe the two M50 cameras. But besides that, not too bad. Hope you enjoyed the video again. Thanks.